Yes.
Yeah.
Starting.
We stopped at respiration for midterm. We went over lungs.
Okay.
It was on the midterm.
There's a question.
Cutting off his head. Oh well. Yes.
All right, Melissa. You're good. Okay, so after respiration, we got into. How was that?
Digestion.
Got into digestion. Okay, digestion is a lot of different organs, right?
Just trying to make this
The
good.
main
Separate.
organs would be the organs of the alimentary canal. You guys know what they are.
Where you going?
That would be starting at your mouth and ending in your rectum.
For the total of the canal, you want to know
Yeah, I want to know what are all the organs included in that.
Oh, that's easy.
I think so too. So that would be mouth, esophagus, stomach, small intestines, large intestines, rectum. Okay? You guys with me? Now you have some accessory digestive organs also. What are those?
Teeth.
That is part of another organ. How about?
Liver.
I was thinking about liver, pancreas.
Gallbladder.
The gallbladder is part of your liver.
But the teeth are there too.
It's listed as an actual thing.
I know, but it is part of the liver.
So gallbladder part.
Gallbladder is part of the liver. Okay,
It's in the
pancreas.
nose.
I understand.
Teeth is part of it.
Teeth are an organ of digestion. It's mechanical
Your
digestion.
accessory ones?
Huh?
So which ones?
I am not understanding the words that are coming out of your mouth.
You understand the words that are coming out?
No, teeth, pancreas, and the
Gallbladder.
teeth, pancreas, and the liver. The gallbladder is part of the liver. It
Gallbladder, part of
collects
liver.
all of the bile that is left
Teeth,
over from the
pancreas,
liver.
liver.
You're not going to win this argument.
No.
The gallbladder is part of the liver. Okay? All right. So
Are you studying that? Let me go over there.
let's go over the different parts that you need to know because there's lots and lots of them. So we're going to start.
Let's be here.
We're going to start with the liver. You guys remember the liver has a dark spot on top. What's that called? That is the bare spot. Okay. You also have a ligament that attaches it. It used to be part of the umbilical cord. That is called the round ligament. Usually that comes off the front. Okay. You guys with me? The round ligament is the one that comes off of the front. It usually hangs down. Okay. This is where your umbilical cord was attached. Okay. You've also got your gallbladder. Okay. Now within, you guys see this large part of the liver that holds bile? That would be the gallbladder. Okay. Now, there are many, many units within the liver that filter your blood, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are those units called? Okay. Lobules. Okay. Each one of those at a corner has got what's called a portal triad. What are those made up of? A vein, artery, and a bile duct. Okay. In the center of those lobules would be it's a central vein. They call it a central canal, but it is a central vein. You guys with me?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the main parts of the liver. How does the liver filter your blood?
It picks through it one by one.
Yeah, it picks things out that it wants to filter out and leaves everything else, right? There's a difference between the liver's filtration and the kidneys, and you need to know the difference, okay? Promise you, it's going to find its way on the test and lab practical, so you need to know it. Okay, so that's one of them. You also need to know stomach. This one's fun too, okay? So the esophagus dumps into the stomach itself. Okay? Now, the stomach is pretty much a very, it's an active organ. It's got a lot of muscle to it, right? Actually moves quite a bit too. Okay, so inside the stomach you have this hard, rough tissue. What's that called? It's called rugae. Very important to know that. Now, within the stomach you've got a couple of different important parts in here. You have lots of different cells that secrete acid and they secrete pepsin. You guys remember the cells that do that? Chief cells and parietal cells. Which one's which? Parietal is HCl and chief cells are pepsin. Okay, how does your stomach withstand all of the acid that's sitting in here?
Mucus.
What kind of mucus?
Lots of it.
Mo.
Sorry.
Is it?
It's bicarbonate.
Oh, yeah.
Bicarbonate mucus. So it neutralizes the acid just on the surface of the stomach so it doesn't get degraded. You guys with me? All right. You also have a couple of regions of the stomach. Okay. There's a fundus in the stomach. Okay. There is a pyloric region. You guys know what that is? So down here is the pyloric region. Okay. You also have a pyloric sphincter. Okay, which dumps out of the stomach. What the sphincter is what allows things out of the stomach into the duodenum. That is part of what organ?
Small intestine.
That is small intestines. So what's the pH around in the stomach?
Acidic.
You need a number?
Yeah, looking for an acidity.
Under 7.
It's very acidic.
It is much slower than 4. It can be anywhere from around 1 to 3. It's usually closer to around 1.5. Okay? Very acidic. Okay? If you gave me 3, I would probably count it right because it's within that range. However, what I want is
1.5.
around 1.5-ish. But you got to keep in mind, from individual to individual, it is different. So the range is more accurate. So if you gave me 1 to 3, I'd take it. Okay? Because that's accurate, because it is a range. Okay? There is no specific number that everybody's at, because that's not realistic. We're all different, and we have different amounts of hydrochloric acid in our stomach. It just works that way. Okay? So it's a range. So give me something in that range, and you'll be good. Okay, so it comes out of the stomach, gets dumped into the duodenum. Okay? Now, what gets pretty much broken down in the stomach? Proteins. Okay? Need to know that, because proteins are what gets broken down in the stomach, because fats do not break down in the stomach at all, right? So when you get to the small intestines or the duodenum, what is it dumping out of the stomach? Really fatty stuff. Okay, in the duodenum, you have a couple of really important parts to this. Okay? Now here it has it pointed out. In this area, you have 2 different ducts that dump into the duodenum. You guys know what they are?
The general bile.
You have your bile duct and you have your pancreatic duct, right? They all both come together and they form an ampulla dumping into your duodenum. Okay? You guys with me?
We can just call it ampulla. So which one?
The proper term would be the hepatopancreatic ampulla. I am not looking for that much detail. What I am looking for is that both the bile duct and the pancreas both dump their enzymes into the duodenum. Okay? So I'll ask you, what enzymes are dumped into this area? You need to know. Pancreatic enzymes and bile. I don't think that that's too much to ask. Okay? So what's getting broken down by those 2 enzymes?
Fats.
Okay? First off, you need to know, what does bile do? Emulsifies fats, so it makes them, or it puts them into solution, right? Okay. What breaks down fats? Well, there's emulsifying it. That's what bile does. Is bile salts emulsify. Pancreatic enzymes are what are breaking it down. You guys with me? So I would definitely know those two. Know that the pancreas creates those pancreatic enzymes. Okay. What else do I want to get from that? That's actually pretty good. You guys also know you have a large membrane holding most of your internal organs in place. This is your mesentery or mesentery, whichever you want to call it. Don't care. Don't count off for spelling, but you need to know it. Okay? It's actually on both sides. Okay? Holding your small intestines and large intestines in place, right? And that's important. So, what's going on in your small intestines? Absorption of about everything. So, you've got villi in here and microvilli. Just what does villi and microvilli do? Increases your surface area, so you get much more absorption, right? Okay, so very important. When you get through the small intestines and you get to the large intestines, you got the ascending, transverse, and descending. Yeah, it probably is. Yeah. Ascending, transverse, and descending. I call it colon at this point. What is going on?
Piling it up.
You're reabsorbing water. Okay, you do not want to become dehydrated, so you reabsorb all the water that has helped your food move on through, right? Okay, so reabsorb that and you pretty much compact feces so that you can get rid of it. Okay, makes sense. So small intestines and large intestines are generally not too life-altering. Okay, we talked about the pancreas just a little bit. Remember that produces those pancreatic enzymes. That's about all I want to know for that. Let's see. Pretty happy with those so far. Did we talk about... We're going to have to get into the kidneys. Also, this is our other form of filtration for the blood. You guys remember, there's lots of different parts to the kidneys, right? Okay. You've got the capsule, and then you get into the renal cortex. What happens in the renal cortex?
Filtration.
That's where all your filtration occurs. Okay. Just going to get a decent model of that. Okay. We have a great picture in the back. If you guys want to see that. Okay, so renal cortex is where all your filtration happens. This is where you're removing everything from your bloodstream. And remember, you start recollecting it. Okay? Okay, so as you collect the waste, where does it get shunted to? Those renal pyramids, they collect and concentrate urine. Okay, and then it dumps from your renal pyramids into what? The renal calyces. It starts with the minor ones, and then they dump into major ones, and then it hits your renal pelvis, right? Okay, when we go from the renal pelvis, I'm going to have to move down. Okay.
Oh, jeez. Sorry.
And just in case you were wondering, this is a fantastic model of microvilli. Okay, so for reabsorption in your intestinal tract, this is the small intestines. You can look at that, take pictures, be prepared.
Where's it going? Everybody notice.
Okay, so you collect urine over here. I'll walk back over.
That's what I thought. Just kidding.
Oh, y'all want to be over here? Fine. All right, we're here.
Hold on.
So you collect urine in your kidneys.
Sorry, camera people.
It's going to be dumped from your renal pelvis into the ureters, right? The ureters will go down into the bladder, okay? Now within the bladder you got a couple of different important parts. Remember we talked about the trigone, okay? This is one of those important parts, okay? This stretches and generally allows you to know when it is time to go, okay? Also the trigone, okay, when you look at this, where the ureters come into the bladder, make up part of this. So where the ureters come into the bladder, these are two of the ends of the trigone. You guys see this?
Is it the white
Over
part?
here.
Yeah, the white part, that triangle, that is the trigone. Okay, so where the ureters come in, make up two ends of that, and then the opening for the urethra makes up the third end. So that makes a triangle. Okay, that is the trigone.
What is the third part?
Trigone.
The white is.
The white is the trigone.
Can you turn this direction? Thank you. Perfect.
I was gonna say
So
it.
where the two ureters come in and where the urethra goes out is all the trigone. Okay? All make up the trigone. Now, in here, we talked about the bladder holds a certain amount. You guys see this, I don't know, I heard it called like,
Didn't
looks
we call
like
it a
kind of
beak
like
last time?
an acorn. You called it
I
a
called it
beak.
beak. That looks like
Okay,
a
this is the prostate gland. Ladies, you do not have one of these.
No.
Okay, but
Just Greg.
me and Greg do. Okay, as far as I know. Okay, so prostate gland, that's really important for a handful of different things. Okay, but that's where the urethra meets up with the spermatic duct or the vas deferens, and then it goes into the urethra itself. Okay. Alright, so we've gone through this, and pretty much you void any law or any fluid. Avoid that through urination. I hate to put these things up not right. Okay, so you generally lose most of your fluid as water containing urea and other toxins and whatever you got to get rid of. Okay? Makes sense? It is lost through the urethra and you're glad it's gone. Okay? Alright.
What's next?
Next thing we went over is the reproductive tract or reproductive organs. You definitely need to remember the kidney though. You need to know digestion, okay, the organs of digestion, and you're going to have to know reproduction. Now reproduction is fun. Oh yeah, don't forget my favorite model of the kidney. This one is going to be on the lab practical, just in case you're wondering. Okay, remember, you've got your glomule, okay, and then it goes into the ducts, and in the ducts, this is where you reacquire all of the stuff that you lost that you need back, right? Okay, that's all within that tube. Okay, you also see the loop of Henle here, going down into your renal pyramid. Remember, this is where you're concentrating urine, and then you have your really long loop of Henle, and that's for really concentrating urine a whole lot. Okay, so when you are running out of fluid and you're getting into dehydration, you turn those on and you really use them. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and also know the parts of the kidney itself. Okay, we're going to get into reproductive organs. We talked about these a little bit. We just got done talking about these in lecture.
Just going everywhere.
You guys seem to be having at least some fun with it.
Okay.
What did you say?
Shave that one.
Shaving what one?
The one in the picture that the lady laughing
I'm-
about. Just one of those things.
Oh, you guys.
Catches you off guard.
Where'd you go,
And
stop?
you were like, oh.
Wait a minute, I gotta turn this on. Can we have this conversation again?
Let's not.
It's on here.
Okay, so reproductive organs. We can get into the glands. Hopefully, if I can find all of the pieces, which is should not have to do that, but whatever. Okay, remember there's different parts of the male reproductive organs. We went over these. Okay, right off the bat. So male reproductive. Oh, this is really in rough shape. Okay, so you got the bladder. Right below the bladder, you get into the prostate gland. You guys can see the prostate gland on this model is actually in red. Okay.
The bottom one?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
right
the
under the
bottom one.
bladder. So right under here, this is the prostate gland, and then it goes into the urethra and comes out. And when we separate these, which is going to be fun, or not,
I'm separated over there.
these things really suffering. Okay. So you can see here the prostate gland is right under the bladder, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you can also see that you go from the testes up to the spermatic, or this is the vas deferens, where it comes up to the spermatic cord. Within the spermatic cord, you got the vas deferens, which wraps around the bladder and comes down into the prostate, where it meets with the urethra. You guys see that?
Mm-hmm.
You need to know that. Okay, where the urethra is going through the prostate is called the prostatic urethra. That kind of makes sense, right? Okay, and then it's just the urethra down here. It's going through the spongy. What's that? Spongy cavern, or what is it? Okay, so you have your corpus cavernosum, and then you have your corpus spongiosum. Okay, and the urethra is within the corpus spongiosum. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's get from that. Can't really see the bulbourethral glands on this model. You definitely know that the prostate secretes prostatic fluid, which mixes in with semen. Okay. Which I believe is also responsible for neutralizing the acidic environment within the vagina. Okay. Now for the testes, we did dissection of the testes. You guys know that you have to know the parts of the testes, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got your, what is the exterior part of the testes? Come on, you guys can do this. Okay, the albuginea is internal. We're talking about vaginalis. What is it? Okay, what is it?
Vestibular.
No.
That's the women.
That's,
We're doing the men.
what is on the outside of the testes, and what is it called?
Guys,
Oh, the top part.
the tough part.
Okay, tunica vaginalis is most exterior. Okay, this is a wrapping around the epididymis and the testy itself, right? Mm-hmm. Tunica vaginalis is around the outside. Okay? And then if you cut that away, you're able to see the head and the tail and the vas deferens of the epididymis, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to remove the tunica vaginalis to see that. You guys with me? Mm-hmm. Now, when you see the testes with the tunica vaginalis removed, you get to see the tunica albuginea. You guys with me? Mm-hmm. All right. Very important. You cut that open, and then you would see just the lobules of the testes and know that they have lots and lots of sperm in them. Millions and millions and millions. It's like the fans of the rock. There's millions of them. Okay? Now, you need to be able to identify the head and the tail of the epididymis. I would like for you to also be able to identify the vas deferens, so you need to know it. Now, the exterior surface or the exterior organ that pretty much houses the testes is the scrotum. You need to know that and what it's for. You guys with me? The housing for both of the testes
And we can just put that down?
would be the scrotum. You need to know what it is and what it's for. Okay? You need to know it's cooler than the rest of the body. Okay? Makes sense. Okay, you need to know that. It's very important. Okay, also need to know corpus spongiosum and corpus cavernosum. When I took this class over a decade ago, it's actually a decade and a half now. It's just a long time ago. Okay? We had to learn the different metabolic pathways that causes erection. So we had to know nitric oxide, and then we went to cyclic GMP, or the cyclic GMP being upregulated. You guys don't have to know that. You need to know that erection generally requires a corpus cavernosum filling up with blood. Okay? And that is where you get erection. Also, you need to know the different things that cause ejaculation, where you get movement of semen from. Okay, so that would be from the testes retracting. Okay, the epididymis also works with this too. The bulbourethral glands secrete, and you also have the prostate secreting. That is all helping with movement of semen. Okay? That is pretty good for the male reproductive organs. Now, female reproductive organs, we got to get into those too. You need to know the different parts. We'll use the big one because it's big.
Use the big one.
Okay? Now, in general, you need to know the ovaries. Okay? You need to know the ovaries are attached to the fallopian tubes. Those attachments, you have the fimbriae, which are responsible for moving eggs down the fallopian tubes, right? I would also like you to know the different layers of the uterus. You need to know them. Right? Okay, so parametrium, myometrium, endometrium, you need to know those. You need to also know that the endometrium is generally, its maintenance is reliant on hormones, okay? Alright, also you need to know about the cervical canal, the internal and external os. When we get into the vagina, it's got a raised surface, okay? It's also called, I believe it's vaginal rugae too, okay? Which is actually kind of interesting. We need to know the organs that hold the uterus and the ovaries in place. Okay, that's the broad ligament. Okay, you also have a suspensory ligament. Okay. Now, just like we talked about male ejaculation, females, you know that you also have different things that happen during stimulation. Okay, so the actual or the vagina itself becomes more, I'd say it changes color to more purple. It's more blood flow to the vagina itself. Actually, the surface within the vagina becomes actually more rigid. Okay? Okay, so it gets actually, get a good word for this is tough. It actually contracts, so it is more defined shape. Okay, as it gets stimulated, also the uterus moves. Under normal conditions, it looks kind of like this. Okay, so the uterus is. Let's see a good example, which is not super easy. Where did they all go? Okay, well, I'll use this one for now. Okay, so the uterus starts off and it's pretty much leaning over the bladder. Okay? As as you ladies get closer and closer to orgasm and pretty much any stimulation, when you're getting closer to that, it actually stands straight up. This is called the tenting effect. And actually, the uterus is pretty much straight up and down. If you get to the point where you get to orgasm, it actually has a tendency to contract and dip down. If there is a pool of semen there, it will dip down into it. Now, it is a broad debate now, and I'll tell you both sides of it. They say that this could aid or has nothing to do with pregnancy. Can't make a judgment call because there's not enough evidence out there. But it is a fact that it does. The head or the cervix itself dips down into a pool of semen if it is there. So this happens during orgasm. So who knows? It might help, might not. There's no evidence, but there is definitely a fact that there is no need for orgasm to occur in order to get pregnant. Sorry. Just one of those things. Okay, so if we know those parts, you also need to know external genitalia, which is missing altogether today, which is fantastic. Okay, so I'll tell you which ones you need to know since I have no model here to show you. Okay. I'm not going to go on a search and destroy mission for a vagina.
There's tons in here.
Yeah, I think we should.
Yeah, we need to see it.
If you're using the big old one. The big old one.
Big old one. I'm just going to tell you what you definitely need to know. Huh? I will look next door in just a minute, but right now let me go over it. We talked about the cervix, internal and external os, the different layers of the uterus itself. You need to know about the vagina. The fornix is where the vagina meets the cervix. That is pretty much a gap on either side. Also need to know that during during orgasm that the uterus does contract, which is interesting. I think that is interesting itself. Another thing is that there is no there's no period of time between, or that like males have a period of time where they cannot get another erection. There's a specific word for that, but it escapes me at the moment. Yeah, there is a refractory period for males. There is no such thing as a refractory period for ladies. You guys can have as many orgasms as you feel like having. Yay.
Do you need to know that?
That is just your information.
Okay.
You might already know that.
I'm not saying anything. You might already know that. Alright, give it a second, everybody's looking for a model. Say hi! Say hi! Say hi! Everybody! What's up? This is a class. Everybody! Say hi!
Sounds like somebody took it and labeled it with all kinds of different stuff.
Ooh.
That would mean that this is important for testing. Okay, so like I told you, under normal circumstances, the uterus is laying over the bladder. Okay, this is where it normally sits. And when you are aroused, it actually stands straight up. This is called the tenting effect. Okay. Also, we've gone over the internal and external os, the fornix is the vagina itself. You need to know the vestibule. You also need to know that the clitoris is pretty much exactly the same structure, or a very similar structure to pretty much the male external genitalia. You pretty much have corpus cavernosum pretty much lining or making up your clitoris. So that does become engorged with blood also, and it stands erect. Okay? Now, in general, there's, that is one of those things where it is the beginning of the vestibule. You got two different parts. You've got your labia minora, which is pretty much inside the labia majora. Okay, so you definitely should know that. Okay, now what is this? The mons pubis is this fatty area that's covering the pubic bone or the pubic symphysis. You guys with me? So all of that is important and testable material. You should know that. Let's see. What else do I want to know about this? That is pretty good for external genitalia. We did not talk at all about the breasts. They become stimulated, and generally, we did talk about they are a modified sweat gland, that they can secrete milk. Also, they become erect during stimulation and when you're aroused. Also, the more aroused you get, just like the vagina becomes more and more aroused and it gets darker, so do the areola around the nipples. They get darker and darker until you have a orgasm. So they will get darker. It usually takes about 10 to 20 minutes for them to go back to their normal resting color. Okay, you guys with me? This is new information, hopefully. Huh?
I never heard about that.
I know. I never heard that.
Absolutely do.
Interesting.
Yes, they get darker during arousal. Yes, ma'am. Yes, blood flow. Okay. Well, we learn something every day.
Is that going to be on the test?
It is testable information, but it's probably a detail that's not going to make it. Most of this class is based on your information. I'm telling you so that you know. Okay? Also,
That's a no.
I honestly believe that you ought to know about your body and what's going on, but
No,
that's
no.
just
No,
me.
it's cool. It's cool.
Okay. So, you guys do have a gland that is similar to the prostate. Okay, you guys know that within the vestibule itself that you have glands that secrete lubricating fluids, right? What?
What's the name of the gland?
I don't know the name off the top of my head. I was just going to tell you, you have a prostate-like gland that secretes into the vestibule itself, huh? It's within the vestibule. I do not think it's labeled on your... Yeah. You will not have... What's that?
Greater vestibular glands. Is that
Yeah, your greater vestibular glands, okay? Now, within those glands, it acts just like the prostate, okay? Okay, so you guys know that the prostate during ejaculation or during orgasm secretes fluid, right? Now, for ladies, you can also have a pretty much similar to ejaculation where that gland, which is just like a prostate, will secrete lots and lots of fluid. Okay, depending on the person, it can be extreme, and that is the gland that is secreting fluid during a orgasm. It is not pee. I do not care what somebody has told you. It is not. That is a secretion caused by that prostate-like gland that you have around the vestibule. Okay, that is what it is. It can be extremely voluminous. Okay, there can be quite a bit of fluid that is released.
Yeah.
It can be extreme.
My bad.
I'm learning, sir. I'm learning.
Okay, I am okay with as long as we keep it professional in here, and then there is no, and it does not have to be a G spot. It just has to be a proper orgasm.
And that's how I got it. It's not
Yeah.
how
It can-
that's what I told her.
Okay, this is where the term squirting came.
Told you video.
You just understand it that way. I'm sorry.
Okay, I will keep it in like layman's terms, but that is what it is. It is a prostate-like gland
prostate gland.
that you have within the vestibule, and it will secrete lots of fluids just like the prostate does. Okay? And it can happen, and every lady has the ability to do that. Okay? Can happen anytime, so don't be surprised. And it's not gross. It can be a mess, though. Okay. That is it for reproduction. That is it for our lab practical review. You guys have any questions?
Good night, everybody.
Yeah, we stop there. I've had enough.
There are no questions.